More updates here on MSNBC as information becomes available. Switching gears now, for a public official, or really for anybody in the public eye, the threshold of scandal can be pretty low. There doesn't always have to be a smoking gun to cause lasting damage. The appearance of wrongdoing can be bad enough. Take Hillary Clinton and those reports this week of a relationship between the Clinton Foundation and the foreign donations it received during her tenure as Secretary of State, and whether there was any quid pro quo in the approval process of the Russian purchase of a company called Uranium One. The Clinton campaign issuing an aggressive response to the report, saying, quote, Hillary Clinton was not involved in the State Department's review of the sale to the Russians, pointing out that 9 agencies were actually involved in the approval of that deal. Still, there's the fact that the foundation failed to disclose all of those foreign donations, as Hillary Clinton had promised the White House they would when she became Secretary of State. It's also the $105 million President Clinton has made in paid speeches since leaving office, at least $26 million of that in speaking fees by companies and organizations that also donated to his foundation. Exactly how much Hillary has made isn't publicly available, but we don't really have to know that figure for it to be a factor as well. As Karen Tumulty asks in the Washington Post, are the Clintons too cozy with the people who give them money? Just asking that question may answer enough. Chris Matthews, E.J. Dion are still with us, and Susan Page from USA Today back with us at the table. So I'm just curious, that question that Karen Tumulty asked in the Washington Post, that seems to be the question that emerges from the reporting this week, Susan. Whether it's the story with Russia, whether it's Clinton and Bill Clinton and the speaking fees, it's about the Clintons and money and how people feel about that. And
you know what is surprising to me is that Hillary Clinton knew there was at least a good chance she was going to run for president again, since she stopped running in 2008. So why not handle things with the Clinton Foundation while she's Secretary of State that avoid this whole set of questions? I think the Clinton campaign is right that so far we don't see any quid pro quo. There's no evidence of an improper act because somebody gave her money, but the amounts of money are pretty stunning, are really high. And the appearance, I think it's hard to argue that there's not the appearance of the potential for a conflict of interest, as Dick Lugar predicted during her confirmation hearing. So that none of this should be a surprise. It's kind of like, remember when Mitt Romney couldn't figure out as a presidential candidate if he had to release his tax returns? And you thought, before he decided to run, he should have known that this is going to be an issue. I need to figure out what I'm going to do about that.
One of the things that jumped out at me this week, Chris, was there's a new poll out, a national poll, that found that more than 60% of voters don't consider Hillary Clinton honest and trustworthy. Right. And it gave me flashbacks to the 90s, because Bill Clinton used to get those same kind of numbers in the 90s, and two things would be happening at the same time. Majority of the country would be saying we don't trust the guy, but they still voted for him. They still like him as president.
By the way, disaggregate those numbers, unpack them, if you will. Like Gregory used to say, David Gregory, unpack those numbers. Half those are conservatives and Republicans that don't like the Clintons. So, but it does say about 20% of the Democrats have a problem with their trustworthiness. And part of that is the drumbeat of Benghazi, Benghazi, Benghazi. Part of that is just relentless news coverage. But the Tumulty piece, the Karen Tumulty piece, was a great piece of work, because it really didn't say they were crooks. It said that her behavior is familiar. And when she went through the whole thing with Mark Rich and the Motel 6 at the White House, using the Lincoln bedroom as a moneymaker, and it was familiar. What I thought was interesting about that piece was, if you look at the whole train of history of the Clintons, there is a familiarity there. It's almost like Billie Jean King or a great tennis star knows, hit the chalk line. That's how you win the game. Hit the chalk line. Don't hit middle. It's like a pitcher. Hit the corner.
Right.
So they work the corners. They work the chalk line. Yeah. And if you do that, you occasionally go over. Or you risk going over. And you certainly get the attention of the press. So I think that, I don't know what they call it, the gray area, that's an old term. They do work that. I mean, they've been desperate to raise money to keep up with the Republicans. You could argue that if you're a Clintonite. But basically, there is familiarity to this that's going to haunt them. But it's not illegal. You'll get carved wrong with that jambalaya voice of his saying, it's not illegal, is it? It's not illegal, is it? And okay, it's not illegal. Next point. Yeah, but if their best defense is it's not illegal, then you got to wonder, is that the terrain they want to work on? And the answer is they feel they should. And I do think there's a thing about the Clintons that makes them miraculously good at fundraising. They like their contributors. This is rare in politics. Yeah. They actually like the people who give them the money. They call them their friends. Now, most politicians, I remember one guy from California used to say, I got to go out this weekend and meet with some contributors. I mean, he knew who they were, but they called him their friend, right? But they're reciprocal. The Clintons really, it's not just the ambassadorships they give out. They really give out their love. They like hanging around with the people up in Martha's Vineyard, Carly Simon, that whole crowd. All the celebrities that are made celebrities because of their money, they like them. And this is a very attractive feature of the Clintons. People like to be liked, and if they give the money to the Clintons, they will be liked. It's serious business. So you got these foreign dignitaries. Imagine you're sitting in some finance ministry in Uganda or somewhere. Well, the Clintons have asked for $100,000. You know, we're a poor country. Should we give it to them? Yeah, and also the president's out on the speaking tour. Should we give him a speech, do you think? What will we get out of that? They got to be thinking like that. And so it's social access, it's sovereignty access. But when countries give you money, they want something.
Well, and
love.
That's the point, EJ, too, is I mean, Susan mentions the 2009 confirmation hearing, and Dick Lugar at the time lays out the potential for the conflict. And Hillary Clinton's response to that at that hearing was, you know, there's not even going to be an appearance here. And that was, to me, that was the problem with the reporting this week. You can't look at that and say, oh, yeah, they've got her, you know, dead to rights on this. But you can look at that and say there's an appearance problem.
Right. Well, what she said is we're going to disclose. We're going to have a higher level of disclosure than any, you know, presidential foundation ever had. Chelsea Clinton said, you know, we are in the high level of transparency here compared to other groups, although I don't know what you can compare the Clinton Foundation to. And as you say, there is no smoking gun here. What you're going to do is have an awful lot of smoke around the Clintons. Both their enemies have been great at constantly producing smoke around them. And there's always enough going on. I mean, there was a lot of money sloshing around the Clinton Foundation. And we began this show by talking about the Republicans who are going after all this billionaire money. One of the best issues progressives and Democrats ought to have is the problem with money in the political system. Hillary Clinton talked about it a couple of weeks ago. And I think one of the costs here is, does this sort of restrict her ability or cloud her ability to make that issue as strongly as she probably could otherwise?
But prostitution is still legal in Nevada. Okay.
Thanks. Well, ending on that note, that's the perfect
Sheldon
note to end
Adelson
it on.
knows.
My thanks to MSNBC's Chris Matthews, and of course, you can catch him hosting Hardball every weeknight.